The elevator doors slid open with a soft chime, revealing the pristine marble lobby of Morrison Industries. 26-year-old Maya Chun clutched her worn leather portfolio against her chest, her heart hammering so loudly she was certain everyone could hear it. This was it. After months of rejections, sleepless nights, and dwindling savings, she finally had an interview at one of the city's most prestigious companies. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The receptionist had called just 2 days ago with an opening for an administrative assistant position, and Maya had practically cried with relief. She glanced down at her outfit one more time, smoothing the wrinkles from her navy blazer. It was the same blazer she'd worn to every interview for the past 6 months, paired with her only professional skirt and the black flats that were starting to show their age. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and she'd applied just enough makeup to hide the exhaustion that had become her constant companion since becoming a single mother. Maya approached the reception desk, where a polished woman in an expensive suit looked up with a practiced smile. The nameplate read Jennifer Walsh, and everything about her screened success, from her perfectly manicured nails to her designer handbag hanging from the back of her chair. "I'm here for the 3 o'clock interview," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Maya Chun." Jennifer's fingers flew across her keyboard, and Maya caught a glimpse of the woman's diamond wedding ring sparkling under the fluorescent lights. It was probably worth more than Maya's rent for 3 months. "Of course, Miss Chun. Please have a seat, and someone will be with you shortly." Jennifer gestured toward a seating area filled with leather chairs and glass tables that probably cost more than Maya's entire furniture collection. Maya settled into one of the chairs, feeling completely out of place among the sleek surroundings. The lobby was all clean lines and modern art, with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a stunning view of the city skyline. Everything here spoke of money, power, and success, things that felt impossibly far from Maya's current reality. She opened her portfolio and reviewed her resume one more time, though she knew every word by heart. Bachelor's degree in business administration from State University, graduated summa cum laude. 3 years of experience as an executive assistant at a small marketing firm before everything fell apart. Proficient in Microsoft Office, QuickBooks, and project management software. Fluent in English and Mandarin. On paper, she was qualified. In reality, she was desperate. The past 8 months had been a nightmare. When her daughter Emma was born, Maya had planned to take a short maternity leave and return to her job at Davidson Marketing. But Emma had been born with respiratory complications that required weeks in the NICU, and Maya had exhausted all her leave time. When she'd finally been ready to return to work, her position had been eliminated due to budget cuts. The company had offered her a part-time role with no benefits, but the pay wouldn't even cover childcare costs. Since then, Maya had applied to dozens of companies, attended countless interviews, and received rejection after rejection. Some were honest. They wanted someone without gaps in their employment history. Others made excuses, but Maya could read between the lines. A single mother with a baby was a liability, someone who might miss work for sick days or doctor appointments, someone whose priorities were divided. Her savings were nearly gone. She'd already moved from her 1-bedroom apartment to a studio in a rougher part of town, trading safety and comfort for affordability. She'd sold her car and relied on public transportation, adding hours to her daily commute but saving hundreds in gas and insurance. She'd even taken on evening work cleaning offices, bringing Emma along in her stroller and working while her daughter slept. But it still wasn't enough. The irony wasn't lost on her that she was interviewing at Morrison Industries, a company whose CEO, James Morrison, was famous for his aggressive business tactics and his public statements about efficiency and productivity. She'd read articles about him firing entire departments with no notice, about his zero-tolerance policy for anything that might interfere with the bottom line. He was exactly the kind of boss who would see a single mother as a risk rather than an asset. But Maya was running out of options. The rent was due in 2 weeks, and she was already behind on her student loan payments. Her child care provider, Mrs. Rodriguez, had been understanding about late payments so far, but Maya could see the worry in the older woman's eyes. Everyone had their limits, and Maya was testing all of them. She glanced at her phone. 2:45 p.m. In 15 minutes, she would walk into that interview room and give the performance of her life. She would be charming, confident, and completely honest about her qualifications, while carefully omitting any mention of the 8-month-old daughter, who was currently napping at the child care center 6 blocks away. It felt like lying by omission. But Maya had learned the hard way that honesty about her personal situation only led to polite rejections. The elevator dinged again, and Maya looked up to see a group of executives emerging, all dark suits and serious expressions. They moved with the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about where their next meal would come from, never having to choose between groceries and medication, never having to apologize for their circumstances. Maya took a deep breath and reminded herself why she was here. Emma deserved better than this constant uncertainty. She deserved a mother who could provide for her without stress and anxiety coloring every day. She deserved stability, security, and a future filled with opportunities. This job could be the first step toward giving Emma everything she deserved. Ms. Chan? A woman in a crisp white blouse appeared beside the reception desk. I'm Sarah Kim, the hiring manager. Are you ready? Maya stood, straightening her blazer one final time. Absolutely. As they walked toward the interview room, Sarah made polite conversation about the weather and Maya's commute. Maya responded appropriately, but her mind was focused on the questions she'd practiced, the examples she'd prepared, and the confident persona she needed to project. She couldn't afford to mess this up. The interview room was smaller than Maya had expected, with an oval conference table and chairs that looked like they belonged in a boardroom rather than a hiring meeting. Sarah gestured for Maya to take a seat, and she settled into the chair facing the door, placing her portfolio on the table in front of her. Before we begin, Sarah said, pulling out a tablet and stylus, I should mention that Mr. Morrison likes to sit in on final interviews for positions that report directly to the executive team. This administrative assistant role would be supporting our VP of operations, so there's a good chance he'll join us. Maya's stomach dropped. James Morrison himself might be conducting this interview. She'd researched the company extensively, but she hadn't prepared for the possibility of meeting the CEO. Everything she'd read about him suggested he was brilliant but intimidating, someone who could see through any facade and who had no patience for weakness. That's fine, Maya managed, though her palms were suddenly sweaty. I appreciate the opportunity to meet with senior leadership. Sarah smiled. Great attitude. Now, let's start with the basics. Can you walk me through your experience and what brings you to Morrison Industries? Maya launched into her practiced response, highlighting her education, her experience at Davidson Marketing, and her skills in organization and project management. She spoke about her passion for efficiency and her ability to anticipate needs before they became problems. She was in the middle of describing a particularly successful event she'd coordinated when the door opened. James Morrison entered the room, and Maya's breath caught in her throat. She'd seen his photo in business magazines and on the company website, but in person, he was more imposing than she'd expected. He was tall, probably in his early 40s, with dark hair that was starting to show silver at the temples, and sharp green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. His charcoal suit was perfectly tailored, and he moved with the kind of authority that came from years of commanding boardrooms and making decisions that affected thousands of people. Sorry I'm late, he said to Sarah, his voice deep and slightly gravelly. Please continue. He took the seat across from Maya, and she felt his gaze settling on her with an intensity that made her want to fidget. Instead, she maintained her composure and finished her answer about the marketing event, then waited for the next question. Impressive, James said, leaning back in his chair. Tell me, Miss Chen, what do you know about Morrison Industries? Maya had prepared for this question extensively. She spoke about the company's founding 30 years ago, its growth from a small construction firm to a major player in commercial real estate development. She mentioned recent projects, the company's expansion into sustainable building practices, and its reputation for delivering projects on time and under budget. You've done your homework, James acknowledged. What appeals to you about working here specifically? This was Maya's chance to shine. She talked about her admiration for the company's commitment to excellence, her interest in being part of a team that tackled complex challenges, and her desire to contribute to an organization that was making a real impact on the city's landscape. She was passionate and articulate, and she could see Sarah taking notes on her tablet. The interview continued for another 20 minutes, with both Sarah and James asking detailed questions about her experience, her problem-solving abilities, and her long-term career goals. Maya felt like she was hitting all the right notes, projecting exactly the kind of professionalism and competence they were looking for. Then James asked the question she'd been dreading. Tell me about your availability, he said, his green eyes fixed on her face. This position requires flexibility. Late nights when we're closing deals, early mornings when we're coordinating with international clients, occasional weekend work during busy periods. Are you able to commit to that level of involvement? Maya's mind raced. This was the moment where she had to choose between honesty and the job she desperately needed. She thought about Emma, sleeping peacefully at Mrs. Rodriguez's childcare center, completely unaware that her future hung in the balance of her mother's answer. I'm absolutely committed to giving this position everything it requires, Maya said. Carefully, I understand that excellence demands flexibility, and I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to contribute to the team's success. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. She would figure out the logistics later. Find childcare that could accommodate irregular hours, perhaps arrange backup options for emergencies. Other single mothers managed careers with demanding schedules. She could do the same. James nodded, seemingly satisfied with her answer. Excellent. Sarah, do you have any other questions? Sarah shook her head. I think we've covered everything. Thoroughly. Good. James stood, and Maya and Sarah followed suit. Ms. Chen, thank you for your time today. We have a few more candidates to interview, but we'll be making a decision by the end of the week. Maya shook hands with both of them, maintaining her professional smile even as her heart sank slightly. A few more candidates. That meant she wasn't the only one in the running, and given her employment gap and limited recent experience, she might not be the strongest contender. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Thank you so much for the opportunity, she said. I'm very excited about the possibility of joining the Morrison Industries team. As she gathered her portfolio and prepared to leave, Sarah walked her toward the door. You should hear from US by Friday, she said warmly. You're clearly qualified, and your enthusiasm really comes through. Maya left the building feeling a mixture of hope and anxiety. The interview had gone well, better than she'd dared to expect, especially with James Morrison's unexpected presence. But she'd learned not to get her hopes up too high. Too many promising interviews had led to polite rejection emails for her to assume anything. She checked her phone as she walked toward the bus stop. 4:30 p.m. Emma would be waking up from her afternoon nap soon, ready for dinner and playtime before bed. Maya quickened her pace, eager to see her daughter smile and temporarily forget about the stress of job hunting. The bus ride back to Mrs. Rodriguez's child care center gave Maya time to replay the interview in her mind. She'd handled the questions well, maintained her composure even when James Morrison's penetrating gaze had made her feel like he could see right through her. But that question about availability lingered. If she got the job, how would she manage the demanding schedule with an 8-month-old baby? She'd figure it out, Maya told herself. She had to. Emma deserved a stable life, and this job could provide that stability. Maya would work twice as hard as anyone else if necessary, prove that a single mother could be just as dedicated and professional as any other employee. The child care center was housed in the basement of a community center in Maya's neighborhood. It wasn't fancy. Folding tables served as desks, and most of the toys were donated or secondhand. But Mrs. Rodriguez ran it with love and genuine care for the children. She'd been understanding about Maya's financial situation, allowing her to pay weekly instead of monthly, and never making her feel ashamed about the time she'd been a day or two late with payment. Maya descended the stairs to the basement, immediately hearing the sounds of children playing and Mrs. Rodriguez's gentle voice speaking in Spanish to one of the toddlers. The familiar smells of baby formula and disinfectant welcomed her, along with the sight of Emma sitting in a bouncy seat, batting at a colorful toy hanging above her. "Mama's here, sweetheart," Maya said softly, scooping Emma into her arms. Her daughter's face lit up with recognition, and she gurgled happily, tiny fingers reaching for Maya's hair. "How is she today?" Maya asked Mrs. Rodriguez, who was tidying up the play area. "An angel, as always," the older woman replied with a warm smile. "She took a good nap and finished her bottle. And you? How did the interview go?" Maya shifted Emma to her hip, breathing in her daughter's sweet baby scent. "I think it went well. I should know by Friday." Mrs. Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "I'll say a prayer for you tonight. You're a good mother, Maya. Any company would be lucky to have you." The words brought unexpected tears to Maya's eyes. She'd been carrying so much stress and self-doubt that she'd almost forgotten she had value, that she brought skills and dedication to the table, regardless of her personal circumstances. "Thank you," Maya said quietly. "That means more than you." "No." As Maya gathered Emma's things and prepared to head home, she allowed herself a moment of cautious optimism. The interview really had gone well. James Morrison had seemed impressed with her answers, and Sarah had been genuinely warm and encouraging. Maybe, just maybe, this would be the opportunity that changed everything for her and Emma. The studio apartment Maya called home was a far cry from the spacious one-bedroom she'd rented before Emma was born, located on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days. It consisted of a single room that served as living room, bedroom, and nursery, plus a tiny kitchenette and a bathroom barely large enough to turn around in. But it was clean, it was theirs, and Maya had done her best to make it feel like home. She'd hung colorful tapestries on the walls to hide the peeling paint, arranged Emma's crib in the corner near the single window to catch the morning light, and created a small seating area with cushions on the floor since she couldn't afford a couch. Books were stacked everywhere, textbooks from college that she couldn't bear to sell, children's books for Emma's future, and library books that provided her only entertainment these days. Maya settled into the cushioned area with Emma on her lap, pulling out one of the picture books she'd been reading to her daughter since birth. Emma was too young to understand the words, but she loved the sound of Maya's voice and the bright illustrations that danced across the pages. "Once upon a time," Maya began, opening to the first page of a story about a brave little rabbit who overcame obstacles through determination and kindness. As she read, Emma's tiny hand grabbed at the pages, and Maya gently guided her fingers away from the book while continuing the story. This was Maya's favorite part of each day, the quiet time with Emma when the stress of job hunting and financial worry faded into the background. In these moments, she could focus entirely on her daughter's needs, watching for every small development and milestone. Emma was starting to sit up on her own, babbling more complex sounds, and showing interest in solid foods. Every day brought something new, some small miracle that reminded Maya why she was fighting so hard to build a better life. After the story, Maya prepared Emma's dinner, mashed sweet potato mixed with a little breast milk, served in a bowl that had once held yogurt, but now served as baby dinnerware. She'd learned to be creative with resources, repurposing containers, and finding ways to stretch every dollar. The baby food was homemade, not because she was particularly crunchy or health conscious, but because it was significantly cheaper than buying jars. "Here comes the airplane," Maya said in a silly voice, guiding the spoon toward Emma's mouth. Her daughter giggled and opened wide, orange sweet potato smearing across her face in the process. Maya laughed despite herself. Emma's joy was infectious, even when she was making a complete mess. Bath time followed dinner, with Emma splashing in the small plastic tub Maya had set up in the bathroom sink. The baby loved water, kicking her legs and squealing with delight as Maya poured warm water over her head with a cup. It was another moment of pure happiness, temporarily washing away Maya's worries about the future. As she dried Emma off and dressed her in soft pajamas, Maya's phone buzzed with a text message. For a moment, her heart leaped. Could it be Morrison Industries with an early decision? But the message was from her landlord, a reminder that rent was due in 2 weeks. Maya's stomach dropped as she remembered the conversation she needed to have with him about a possible extension. She pushed the worry aside and focused on getting Emma ready for bed. The nighttime routine was sacred, a bottle, a lullaby, and gentle rocking until Emma's eyes grew heavy. Maya treasured these quiet moments, Emma's warm weight against her chest, the trust and love in her daughter's sleepy gaze. Once Emma was settled in her crib, Maya allowed herself to think about the interview again. She replayed every question and answer, analyzing James Morrison's expressions and Sarah's reactions. The more she thought about it, the more confident she felt that she'd made a good impression. They'd seemed genuinely interested in her experience and skills, and she'd projected exactly the kind of professionalism they were looking for. The position itself sounded challenging but manageable. Supporting the VP of Operations would likely involve scheduling, correspondence, project coordination, and general administrative tasks, all things she'd done successfully at her previous job. The salary range Sarah had mentioned would be life-changing for Maya and Emma. Not only would it cover their basic needs, but it would also allow them to move to a better apartment, maybe even save for Emma's future education. Maya opened her laptop, a 5-year-old model that took several minutes to boot up, and began drafting a thank-you email to send to Sarah in the morning. She'd learned that follow-up was crucial in the job search process, and she wanted to reiterate her interest while the interview was still fresh in their minds. As she typed, Maya found herself imagining what life would look like if she got the job. She pictured herself arriving at Morrison Industries each morning, professional and confident, contributing to important projects and earning the respect of her colleagues. She imagined Emma in a higher quality childcare center, surrounded by educational toys and experienced caregivers. She imagined being able to buy groceries without calculating every purchase, being able to take Emma to the pediatrician without worrying about the copay. But she also thought about the challenges. The demanding schedule James had mentioned would require significant adjustments to her routine. She'd need to find childcare that could accommodate early mornings and late nights, probably at a much higher cost than what she was paying Mrs. Rodriguez. She'd have less time with Emma, fewer opportunities for the quiet moments that currently anchored her days. The trade-offs were worth it, Maya told herself. A successful career would provide Emma with opportunities that poverty never could. Yes, there would be adjustments and challenges, but other working mothers navigated these waters successfully. Maya was intelligent, resourceful, and absolutely committed to making it work. She finished the thank you email and set it to send. First thing in the morning, then spent some time updating her budget spreadsheet. Even with her current income from cleaning offices 3 nights a week, she was falling short of her monthly expenses. The gap was small but consistent, slowly draining her savings and pushing her closer to a financial crisis. Maya closed the laptop and prepared for bed, changing into pajamas that had seen better days and washing her face with drugstore cleanser. In the mirror, she could see the exhaustion that makeup had hidden during the interview, dark circles under her eyes, stress lines that seemed to deepen each week, the pallor that came from too much worry and too little sleep. But she also saw determination. Every single mother in history had faced these same challenges, this same balancing act between providing for their children and being present for them. Maya wasn't unique in her struggles, but she was unique in her specific circumstances, her particular strengths and resources. She would find a way to make this work. As she settled into bed, a mattress on the floor next to Emma's crib, Maya allowed herself to hope. Tomorrow was Wednesday, which meant she only had to wait 2 more days for Morrison Industries' decision. 2 more days of uncertainty, but also 2 more days of possibility. She listened to Emma's gentle breathing in the darkness, a sound that had become her favorite lullaby. Whatever the future held, she would face it with her daughter by her side. They were a team, the 2 of them against the world, and Maya was determined to build a life worthy of the trust she saw in Emma's eyes every day. The next morning dawned gray and cloudy, matching Maya's mood as she prepared for another day of waiting. She'd sent the thank you email to Sarah first thing, a professional but warm message reiterating her interest in the position and her excitement about potentially joining the Morrison Industries team. Emma seemed to sense her mother's tension, fussing more than usual during breakfast and refusing to settle for her morning nap. Maya paced the small apartment, bouncing her daughter gently and humming the lullabies that usually soothed her. Outside, she could hear the sounds of the city waking up, traffic increasing, people hurrying to jobs that provided steady paychecks and benefits that Maya could only dream about. When Emma finally fell asleep, Maya used the quiet time to search for backup childcare options online. If she got the Morrison Industries job, she'd need someone who could handle irregular hours and last-minute schedule changes. The options were limited and expensive, but Maya bookmarked several possibilities to research further. She also spent time researching James Morrison himself, curious about the man who might become her boss. The articles painted a picture of someone who was brilliant but demanding, who expected excellence from everyone around him and had little patience for excuses or limitations. He'd built Morrison Industries from a small family construction company into a major player in commercial real estate through aggressive expansion and strategic acquisitions. The personal details were sparse. He was single, though there were occasional photos of him at charity events with various attractive women. He'd graduated from prestigious universities, served briefly in the military, and was known for his philanthropic contributions to veterans organizations and children's hospitals. But there was something distant about all the information, as if James Morrison, the public figure, was carefully constructed to reveal nothing about James Morrison, the person. Maya wondered what he'd thought of her during the interview. His questions had been probing but fair, and she'd sensed genuine interest in her answers. But there had been moments when his green eyes had seemed to see right through her professional facade, as if he could sense the desperation she was trying so hard to hide. The rest of Wednesday passed slowly. Maya took Emma for a walk in the stroller, partly for fresh air and partly because it was free entertainment. They visited the small playground in their neighborhood, where Maya pushed Emma in the baby swing while other mothers chatted about their lives, their jobs, their plans for the weekend. Maya listened but didn't participate much. It was hard to relate to conversations about vacation plans and home renovations when her biggest concern was making rent. Thursday was even longer. Maya checked her email obsessively, hoping for an early response from Morrison Industries. She cleaned the apartment thoroughly, reorganized Emma's tiny wardrobe, and made a grocery list that prioritized nutrition over cost. Emma seemed to pick up on her mother's restless energy, sleeping fitfully and requiring extra attention throughout the day. That evening, as Maya was giving Emma her bath, her phone rang. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize, and Maya's heart leaped. Could it be Morrison Industries with an early decision? Hello? She answered, balancing the phone between her ear and shoulder while keeping one hand on Emma in the tub. Maya, this is Jennifer from Morrison Industries. Is this a good time to talk? Maya's pulse quickened. It was the receptionist from the interview, calling on a Thursday evening instead of Friday as promised. This could be very good news or very bad news. Yes, absolutely, Maya said, lifting Emma out of the tub and wrapping her in a towel. Thank you for calling. I have good news, Jennifer continued, and Maya felt her knees go weak with relief. Mr. Morrison and Sarah were very impressed with your interview. They'd like to offer you the administrative assistant position. Maya sank onto the edge of her bed. Emma cuddled against her chest, hardly able to believe what she was hearing. After months of rejections, after so many disappointments, someone was finally saying yes. That's wonderful, Maya managed, her voice thick with emotion. I'm absolutely thrilled to accept. Jennifer went on to discuss salary details. Benefits and start date, Monday morning, just 4 days away. The salary was exactly what Sarah had mentioned during the interview, more money than Maya had seen in months. The benefits included health insurance that would cover Emma, paid vacation time, and even a modest retirement contribution. I'll email you all the details tonight, along with new employee paperwork, Jennifer said. And Maya, congratulations. We're excited to have you join the team. After hanging up, Maya sat in stunned silence for several minutes, Emma babbling happily in her arms. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. After 8 months of struggle, rejection, and constant worry, she'd landed a job at one of the city's most prestigious companies. The relief was overwhelming. Maya found herself crying, tears of gratitude, exhaustion, and hope for the future. Emma looked up at her with concerned baby eyes, and Maya laughed through her tears. Mama got a job, sweetheart, she whispered, pressing a kiss to Emma's forehead. Everything's going to be okay now. But even as she celebrated, Maya's practical mind was already working through the logistics. She needed to find childcare that could accommodate her new schedule starting Monday. She needed professional clothes beyond the single blazer and skirt she'd worn to the interview. She needed to figure out transportation, since the bus route to Morrison Industries would add an hour to her daily commute. Maya spent Friday in a whirlwind of preparation. She visited 3 different childcare centers, finally settling on one that was more expensive than Mrs. Rodriguez's informal arrangement, but offered the flexibility and professional environment she needed. The director, a warm woman named Patricia, had immediately put Maya at ease and shown genuine interest in Emma's development and needs. She also made a quick trip to a discount clothing store, using money she'd been saving for rent to buy 2 additional business outfits. The clothes weren't high quality, but they were professional and properly fitted, and Maya felt confident they'd help her project the right image at Morrison Industries. Saturday was spent practicing her new routine, figuring out timing for drop-off and pick-up, planning her commute, and mentally preparing for the challenges ahead. Emma seemed to sense the change coming, clinging more tightly to Maya and resisting being put down. Maya tried to maintain their normal routines while also preparing for the dramatic shift that Monday would bring. Sunday evening, as Maya was laying out her clothes for the first day and reviewing the employee handbook Jennifer had emailed, she allowed herself to truly absorb what was happening. In less than 12 hours, she would walk into Morrison Industries, not as a desperate job seeker, but as an employee. She would have a desk, responsibilities, colleagues, and a steady paycheck. The transformation felt surreal. For so long, Maya had defined herself by what she lacked: stable income, career prospects, financial security. Now she was about to become someone who provided administrative support to a VP at a major corporation, someone who contributed to important projects and earned a professional salary. Emma was already asleep in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. Maya watched her daughter in the dim light from the street lamp outside their window, thinking about all the ways this job would change their lives. Better housing, better childcare, better opportunities for Emma's future. College savings accounts, family vacations, the ability to say yes when Emma wanted something instead of constantly having to say no. But Maya also thought about what she might be giving up. The quiet mornings when she and Emma had nowhere to be, the long afternoon walks, the flexibility to respond immediately to Emma's needs. Starting Monday, Maya's time would belong to Morrison Industries, and Emma would spend her days with caregivers instead of her mother. It was a trade-off that every working parent faced, Maya reminded herself, and the benefits far outweighed the costs. Emma would have stability, security, and opportunities that Maya's love alone couldn't provide. This job was the foundation upon which Maya could build the life she wanted for both of them. As Maya finally settled into bed, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness that reminded her of the night before starting college. Everything was about to change, and while the future was uncertain, it was filled with more possibility than she'd felt in months. Tomorrow, Maya Chun would begin her new life as an employee of Morrison Industries. Tonight, she was still the struggling single mother who'd fought her way through 8 months of rejection and disappointment. But in just a few hours, she would transform into someone new, someone with a professional identity, financial stability, and a clear path forward. Maya closed her eyes and tried to quiet her racing mind. She needed rest for the challenge ahead, energy for the performance she'd need to give. Monday would be the first day of her new life, and she was determined to make the most of every opportunity it offered. Monday morning arrived with the piercing sound of Maya's alarm at 5:30 a.m., earlier than she'd ever had to wake up before becoming a mother. She jolted awake, immediately alert despite having tossed and turned for hours the night before. Today was the day that would change everything for her and Emma. Maya moved quietly through their small apartment, not wanting to wake Emma too early. She showered quickly in their tiny bathroom, the water pressure weak but adequate, and dressed in one of her new professional outfits, a charcoal gray blazer with matching slacks and a crisp white blouse. Standing in front of the cracked mirror, she applied makeup carefully, trying to project confidence and competence even though her stomach was churning with nerves. Emma stirred in her crib as Maya was putting on her shoes, making the soft cooing sounds that meant she was transitioning from sleep to wakefulness. Maya lifted her daughter gently, breathing in that sweet baby scent that always grounded her. "Good morning, beautiful girl," Maya whispered, settling into the rocking chair she'd bought secondhand when Emma was born. "Today's a big day for both of us." Emma blinked up at her with those bright brown eyes, completely unaware that her world was about to change as dramatically as her mother's. Maya fed her, changed her diaper, and dressed her in a soft pink outfit that Mrs. Rodriguez had given them, a hand-me-down from one of her other families, but clean and adorable. The morning routine felt both familiar and strange. Maya had done these same tasks hundreds of times, but today they carried different weight. In a few hours, she would be leaving Emma with strangers at Sunshine Early Learning Center, trusting other people to care for her daughter while she worked to build their future. Maya packed Emma's diaper bag with meticulous care, extra clothes, diapers, bottles, her favorite stuffed elephant, and a small photo of Maya that the childcare director had suggested might help with the transition. She also packed her own work bag, making sure she had everything she might need for her first day at Morrison Industries. The bus ride to Sunshine Early Learning took 45 minutes, with Emma fussing slightly in her car seat as they navigated the morning commute. Maya bounced her gently and spoke in soothing tones, but she could feel her own anxiety building as they got closer to their destination. The child care center was housed in a converted Victorian home in a neighborhood that was slowly gentrifying. The building was painted cheerful yellow with blue trim, and there were colorful murals on the fence surrounding the small playground. It looked safe and welcoming, but Maya's heart still clenched as she carried Emma up the front steps. Patricia Williams, the center director, met them at the door with a warm smile. She was a woman in her 50s with graying hair pulled back, in a neat bun and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She'd spent 20 years working in early childhood education, and her experience showed in the way she immediately put both Maya and Emma at ease. "How are we doing this morning?" Patricia asked, reaching out to gently touch Emma's hand. The baby stared at her with curious eyes, not crying but clearly assessing this new person. "She's been pretty good," Maya said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I think she senses that something's different today." Patricia led them into the infant room, a bright space filled with age-appropriate toys, colorful mobiles, and several cribs for nap time. 2 other caregivers were already there, preparing for the day ahead. The room smelled like baby powder and the faint scent of disinfectant, clean and professional, but nothing like the familiar comfort of home. "This will be Emma's primary space," Patricia explained, showing Maya the crib that would be Emma's, the changing area, and the small kitchen where bottles would be prepared. "Ms. Johnson will be her primary caregiver during the day shift, and she has 15 years of experience with infants." Ms. Johnson was a soft-spoken African-American woman in her 30s who immediately knelt down to Emma's level, speaking to her in gentle tones. Emma studied her seriously, then reached out to grab the colorful badge hanging from her lanyard. It was a good sign. Emma was curious rather than frightened. Maya went through Emma's routine with Ms. Johnson, explaining her feeding schedule, her nap preferences, and the little things that made her happy when she was fussy. She handed over the carefully packed diaper bag, feeling like she was transferring responsibility for the most important thing in her life to a virtual stranger. "We'll take excellent care of her," Miss Johnson assured Maya. "And you can call anytime to check in. We understand how difficult this transition can be for parents." Maya kissed Emma's forehead, inhaling her daughter's scent one more time before reluctantly handing her over to Ms. Johnson. Emma whimpered slightly, but didn't cry, her attention caught by a bright red toy that Ms. Johnson offered her. "I'll be back at 6:30, Maya said, backing slowly toward the door. "She has my work number and my cell phone. Please call if there are any problems at all." "We will," Patricia promised. "Try not to worry. Emma's going to have a wonderful day." The hardest part was walking away. Maya forced herself to leave the building and catch the next bus to Morrison Industries, but every instinct screamed at her to turn around and scoop Emma back into her arms. She'd never been separated from her daughter for more than a few hours, and the thought of being apart for 10 hours felt overwhelming. The bus ride to Morrison Industries gave Maya time to compartmentalize her emotions and shift into professional mode. She reviewed her mental notes about the company, the people she'd be working with, and the expectations that had been outlined during her interview. By the time she arrived at the gleaming office building, she had successfully pushed her maternal anxiety into a corner of her mind where it wouldn't interfere with her performance. Jennifer Walsh was waiting for her in the lobby, looking as polished and professional as she had during Maya's interview. She led Maya through the security process, providing her with an ID badge and explaining the building's layout and procedures. "Your desk is on the 5th floor," Jennifer explained as they rode the elevator up. "You'll be working directly with Rebecca Martinez, our VP of Operations. She's been with the company for 8 years and really knows the business inside and out." The 15th floor was a maze of cubicles and offices, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering stunning views of the city. Maya's desk was positioned outside Rebecca's corner office, equipped with a computer, phone, and all the supplies she'd need to get started. Rebecca Martinez emerged from her office as Maya was settling in. She was a woman in her early 40s, with shoulder-length black hair and an efficient manner that suggested she didn't waste time on small talk. But her smile was genuine, and she seemed pleased to finally have administrative support. "Maya, welcome to the team," Rebecca said, shaking her hand firmly. "I'm Rebecca, and I have to say, I'm thrilled to have you here. We've been swamped lately, and having someone with your experience will make a huge difference." Rebecca spent the morning orienting Maya to her responsibilities. She would be managing Rebecca's calendar, coordinating meetings, handling correspondence, and providing support for various projects. The work was challenging but well within Maya's capabilities, and she felt her confidence growing as Rebecca explained each task. "The key thing to remember," Rebecca said, pulling up the company's project management software on Maya's computer, "is that everything we do here moves fast. Decisions are made quickly, deadlines are tight, and there's not much room for error. But if you stay organized and communicate well, you'll do fine." Maya absorbed every detail, taking careful notes and asking clarifying questions when necessary. She could see why Morrison Industries was successful. There was an energy and efficiency here that she'd never experienced in her previous job. Everyone seemed focused and purposeful, working toward clearly defined goals. Around 10:30, Rebecca got called into an unexpected meeting, leaving Maya to continue familiarizing herself with the computer systems and procedures. She was making good progress when her phone buzzed with a text message from Sunshine Early Learning. "Emma doing great. Took bottle well and playing happily. No need to worry." The message should have been reassuring, but instead it made Maya's chest tighten with longing. She missed Emma already, missed being the one to see her daughter's smiles and respond to her needs. Maya quickly typed back a thank you message and forced herself to focus on work. The morning flew by as Maya threw herself into learning her new role. She scheduled meetings for Rebecca, updated project timelines, and began organizing the filing system that had apparently been neglected by the temp who'd been covering the position. It felt good to be useful again, to apply her skills in a professional environment where her contributions mattered. Around noon, Rebecca returned from her meeting with news that would change the course of Maya's day. "We have a situation," Rebecca said, her expression serious. "The Hartwell Group is considering pulling out of our biggest development project. James wants to meet with them this afternoon to try to salvage the deal, but their CEO can only do it at 2 p.m. I need you to coordinate." The meeting, conference room, catering, presentation materials, the works. Maya's pulse quickened. This was exactly the kind of high-stakes situation where she could prove her value to the company. "Absolutely. What do you need me to do first?" Rebecca rattled off a list of tasks. "Book the executive conference room, arrange for lunch catering, coordinate with the IT department to set up presentation equipment, and notify all the relevant stakeholders about the meeting." It was a lot to accomplish in less than 2 hours, but Maya felt energized by the challenge. She attacked the task list with methodical efficiency, making phone calls, sending emails, and personally checking on each detail. The catering coordinator was initially reluctant to accommodate such short notice, but Maya's persistence and professional demeanor eventually convinced her to make it work. The IT department was similarly accommodating once Maya explained the urgency of the situation. By 1:45 p.m., everything was in place. The executive conference room was set up with fresh flowers, elegant place settings, and the latest presentation technology. A selection of gourmet sandwiches, salads, and beverages was arranged on the side table. Maya had even ensured that fresh coffee and sparkling water were available, along with notepads and pens for all attendees. James Morrison arrived at 1:50. Flanked by two other executives Maya didn't recognize. He was dressed in an impeccably tailored navy suit, and his presence seemed to fill the hallway as he approached the conference room. Maya stood to greet him, her heart racing slightly at the memory of their interview just a few days earlier. "Everything looks perfect," James said, surveying the conference room setup. His green eyes met Maya's briefly, and she caught a flicker of approval. "Excellent work on such short notice." "Thank you, Mr. Morrison," Maya replied professionally. "The Hartwell team should be arriving any moment." The meeting proceeded smoothly from Maya's perspective. She remained available outside the conference room, ready to handle any last-minute needs that arose. She could hear the murmur of serious conversation through the closed door, punctuated occasionally by laughter or more animated discussion. At one point, she was called in to provide additional copies of a document, and she could see from the body language around the table that the meeting was going well. Around 4 p.m., the conference room door opened and the attendees began filing out. James was shaking hands with a distinguished man in his 60s, who Maya assumed was the CEO of the Hartwell Group. Both men were smiling, suggesting that whatever crisis had threatened the project had been successfully averted. "Maya," Rebecca called out as the guests were leaving. "Outstanding job today. That meeting could have been a disaster if you hadn't pulled everything together so quickly." The praise felt wonderful, confirmation that Maya had made the right choice in taking this job. She was good at this work, and it felt amazing to use her skills in an environment where they were valued and appreciated. The rest of the afternoon was spent following up on the meeting, sending thank you emails, distributing notes, and updating project timelines based on the new agreements that had been reached. Maya worked efficiently, but part of her attention was on the clock. Emma had been at childcare for nearly 8 hours, and Maya was eager to be reunited with her daughter. At 6 p.m., Maya began shutting down her computer and organizing her desk for the next day. Rebecca had left for another meeting, and the office was starting to empty as people headed home for the evening. Maya gathered her things and headed for the elevator, looking forward to seeing Emma's face when she arrived at Sunshine Early Learning. But as the elevator descended toward the lobby, Maya's phone rang. The caller ID showed the number for Sunshine Early Learning, and Maya's stomach immediately dropped. Child care centers didn't usually call at pickup time unless something was wrong. "Hello?" Maya answered, trying to keep the anxiety out of her voice. "Maya, this is Patricia," came the familiar voice of the center director. "Everything's fine. But we have a small situation. Emma has been fussy for the past hour, and she's running a slight fever. It's probably nothing serious, but our policy requires that children with fevers be picked up immediately." Maya's heart sank. It was her first day at a new job, and she was already facing exactly the kind of crisis that made employers hesitant to hire single mothers. "I'll be there as soon as I can," she said. "The bus should get me there by 6:45. "Actually," Patricia continued, and Maya could hear the hesitation in her voice, "there's something else. Emma has been crying for the past 30 minutes, and nothing we've tried has calmed her down. She seems to be asking for you specifically. Would it be possible for you to come a little sooner?" Maya checked the time, 6:05 p.m. The next bus wouldn't arrive for another 20 minutes, and then it would be a 45-minute ride to the child care center. Emma was sick and crying for her mother, and Maya was trapped in an office building, dependent on public transportation and completely helpless to respond immediately. "I'm leaving right now," Maya said, her voice tight with emotion. "Please tell Emma that Mama is coming." She hung up and jabbed frantically at the elevator button, willing it to move faster. When the doors finally opened in the lobby, Maya practically ran toward the exit, her heels clicking against the marble floor. She was so focused on getting to Emma that she didn't notice the man approaching from the opposite direction until it was too late. Maya collided with someone at full speed, the impact sending her purse flying and causing her to stumble backward. She looked up to see James Morrison steadying himself, his expression shifting from surprise to concern as he recognized her. "Maya, are you all right?" he asked, reaching out to help her regain her balance. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Morrison," Maya gasped, scrambling to collect her scattered belongings. "I wasn't watching where I was going. My daughter is sick at childcare, and I need to get to her right away." James frowned, glancing at his watch. "It's after 6. Where's the childcare center?" "Across town," Maya admitted, feeling tears of frustration beginning to build. "The bus ride takes 45 minutes, and she's been crying for half an hour already." Without hesitation, James pulled out his phone. "Marcus, bring the car around front immediately," he said into the device. Then he looked at Maya with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I'll drive you." Maya stared at him in shock. "Mr. Morrison, I couldn't possibly ask you to." "You're not asking," James interrupted firmly. "You're a valued employee with a family emergency, and I'm in a position to help. End of discussion." Before Maya could protest further, a sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb outside the building. James guided her toward the car, opening the passenger door and waiting for her to get in before walking around to the driver's side. The interior of the car was luxurious beyond anything Maya had ever experienced. Leather seats, a sophisticated dashboard, and the kind of sound system that probably cost more than she'd made in the past 6 months. But Maya barely noticed the luxury. Her mind was entirely focused on Emma, imagining her daughter crying inconsolably in the arms of strangers. "What's the address?" James asked as he pulled into traffic. Maya gave him the information, then immediately called Patricia back to let her know she was on her way. James navigated the city streets with the confidence of someone who knew every shortcut and alternate route. What would have been a 45-minute bus ride took only 20 minutes in his car, and Maya found herself genuinely grateful for his unexpected kindness. "Thank you," she said quietly as they neared the childcare center. "This is incredibly generous of you, especially on my first day." James glanced at her briefly before returning his attention to the road. "Family comes first," he said simply. "Always." There was something in his tone that suggested he spoke from personal experience, but Maya didn't have time to analyze it. They were pulling up in front of Sunshine Early Learning, and Maya could see Patricia waiting by the front door with Emma in her arms. Maya was out of the car before it came to a complete stop, rushing toward her daughter with her heart pounding. Emma's face was flushed and tear-streaked, and she reached for Maya with desperate little hands. "Mama's here, sweetheart," Maya murmured, taking Emma into her arms and feeling the baby's fever through her clothes. Emma's crying immediately subsided, replaced by shuddering breaths as she clung to her mother. "She started getting fussy around 3 p.m., Patricia explained. "The fever began about an hour ago. It's 100.2, so not dangerous, but high enough that we needed to call you. She's probably just fighting off a minor virus." Maya nodded, bouncing Emma gently and feeling the familiar weight of maternal guilt. Had the stress of starting childcare made Emma sick? Was this Maya's fault for pushing too hard, too fast? "I'm so sorry about this," Maya said to Patricia. "I know it's not an ideal first day." "Don't apologize," Patricia replied kindly. "This happens all the time when children are adjusting to new environments. Emma will build up her immunity, and these episodes will become much less frequent." Maya gathered Emma's things and prepared to figure out how to get home via public transportation with a sick baby. But when she turned around, James Morrison was still there, leaning against his car with an expression of patient concern. "Ready?" he asked, as if it was perfectly normal for a CEO to wait in a parking lot while his employee dealt with a childcare crisis. The ride back to Maya's neighborhood was quieter, with Emma dozing fitfully in her car seat. James had insisted on installing the car seat properly. demonstrating a familiarity with child safety equipment that surprised Maya. Most childless executives wouldn't have known how to thread the straps correctly or check for proper installation. "You can drop us anywhere along Main Street," Maya said as they entered her neighborhood. She was embarrassed for James to see the rundown building where she lived, the cracked sidewalks and graffiti that marked this area as decidedly working class. But James ignored her suggestion and pulled up directly in front of her building, parking in a no-parking zone without apparent concern for tickets or towing. He got out and helped Maya with Emma's car seat and diaper bag, carrying them up the 3 flights of stairs to her apartment door. "This really wasn't necessary," Maya said as she fumbled for her keys, Emma still feverish in her arms. "Yes, it was," James replied matter-of-factly. He waited until Maya had unlocked her door and stepped inside before handing over the car seat and diaper bag. "Take tomorrow off to make sure Emma's feeling better. Family comes first, remember?" Maya stared at him, overwhelmed by his unexpected kindness. "Mr. Morrison, I can't take a day off on my second day of work. What kind of message does that send?" "It sends the message that you're a responsible parent who prioritizes your child's health," James said firmly. "Morrison Industries values employees who understand their priorities. Take the day, Maya. That's an order from your CEO." Before Maya could argue further, James was gone, his footsteps echoing in the stairwell as he descended to his car. Maya stood in her doorway holding Emma, trying to process what had just happened. In the span of 2 hours, she'd gone from a successful first day at work to a family crisis, and somehow her new boss had responded with more understanding and support than she'd ever experienced from any employer. Emma stirred in her arms, whimpering softly as her fever made her uncomfortable. Maya closed the door and carried her daughter into their small apartment, immediately shifting into full maternal mode. She gave Emma a dose of infant fever reducer, offered her a bottle, and settled into the rocking chair to provide comfort and monitoring throughout the night. As she rocked her sick daughter, Maya reflected on the unexpected turn her day had taken. The job at Morrison Industries was everything she'd hoped for professionally, challenging and rewarding in ways that made her feel valued and capable. But the reality of balancing a demanding career with single motherhood was already proving more complicated than she'd anticipated. Emma's fever broke around midnight, and she finally settled into peaceful sleep. Maya transferred her to the crib and prepared for bed herself, exhausted from the emotional roller coaster of the day. As she lay in the darkness listening to Emma's steady breathing, she thought about James Morrison's words, "Family comes first, always." There had been something almost vulnerable in the way he'd said it, as if he understood the weight of that principle from personal experience. Maya wondered about his own family situation, whether he had children of his own hidden away from the public eye. His kindness toward Emma had seemed genuine and instinctive, not the awkward politeness of someone uncomfortable around children. Whatever his motivations, Maya was deeply grateful for his support during her crisis. Not many employers would have been so understanding about a family emergency on an employee's first day, and even fewer would have personally driven her across town to handle the situation. It suggested that Morrison Industries might be the kind of company where she could build a long-term career without constantly worrying about the conflicts between work and motherhood. Emma slept peacefully through the night, her fever staying down and her breathing easy. Maya checked on her every few hours, but by morning it was clear that whatever virus had made her sick was already on its way out. Emma woke up with bright eyes and her usual sunny disposition, babbling happily as Maya prepared her breakfast. Maya called Sunshine Early Learning to update them on Emma's condition and confirmed that she'd be returning the following day. Patricia was pleased to hear that Emma was feeling better and assured Maya that such quick recoveries were common among infants adjusting to group childcare settings. The unexpected day off gave Maya time to reflect on her priorities and plan for the challenges ahead. She spent the morning playing with Emma, reading stories, and enjoying the luxury of unscheduled time together. In the afternoon, she used Emma's nap time to research backup childcare options and emergency procedures, determined to be better prepared for future crises. Maya also composed a thank you email to James Morrison, expressing her gratitude for his kindness and assuring him that she was committed to being a reliable employee despite the rocky start. She kept the message professional but warm, acknowledging his support while maintaining appropriate boundaries. As evening approached, Maya felt a mixture of anxiety and excitement about returning to work the next day. The first day had shown her both the potential rewards and the potential challenges of her new position. Morrison Industries offered opportunities for professional growth and financial stability that could transform her and Emma's lives. But balancing those opportunities with her responsibilities as a single mother would require careful planning and perhaps a bit of luck. Emma seemed completely recovered by bedtime, her appetite normal and her energy levels back to their usual heights. As Maya settled her daughter for the night, she felt confident that they were both ready to tackle whatever challenges the next day might bring. The experience had taught Maya something important about her new employer. Morrison Industries might be a demanding, fast-paced company, but it was also a place where family emergencies were met with understanding rather than punishment. James Morrison himself had demonstrated a level of personal kindness that suggested the company's values went beyond mere profit maximization. Maya fell asleep that night, feeling more optimistic about her future than she had in months. Yes, there would be challenges ahead, and yes, the balancing act between career and motherhood would require constant attention. But for the first time since Emma was born, Maya felt like she had found a place where both aspects of her identity could coexist successfully. Wednesday morning arrived with renewed energy and determination. Maya prepared for her second day at Morrison Industries with careful attention to every detail, from Emma's childcare bag to her own professional appearance. She was ready to prove that the previous day's crisis had been an anomaly, not a preview of ongoing problems. The commute went smoothly, with Emma seeming almost excited to return to sunshine early learning. She babbled happily during the bus ride and reached eagerly for Ms. Johnson when they arrived at the center. Maya kissed her goodbye with considerably less anxiety than she'd felt on Monday, confident that both she and Emma were better prepared for the separation. Maya arrived at Morrison Industries 15 minutes early, eager to demonstrate her commitment and reliability. Rebecca was already at her desk, reviewing documents and preparing for what looked like another busy day. "How's Emma feeling?" Rebecca asked as Maya settled into her workspace. "Much better, thank you," Maya replied, touched that Rebecca had remembered. "I think it was just a 24-hour bug." "Good to hear. And Maya?" Rebecca looked up from her documents with a serious expression. "I heard about what happened yesterday with James driving you to the child care center. That was incredibly kind of him, but please don't feel like you have to handle every crisis on your own. We want you to succeed here, which means we want to support you when you need it." Maya felt a warmth spreading through her chest at Rebecca's words. "Thank you. That means more than you know." The day proceeded smoothly, with Maya throwing herself into her work with renewed focus and energy. She handled Rebecca's correspondence, coordinated several meetings, and began working on a comprehensive project tracking system that would help the operations team stay on top of their various initiatives. Around 10 a.m., Maya received an email that made her pause. It was from James Morrison's assistant, requesting that Maya stop by his office at her earliest convenience. Maya's stomach fluttered with nervousness. Was he having second thoughts about his kindness yesterday? Had someone complained about his unorthodox response to her family emergency? Maya told Rebecca where she was going and took the elevator up to the executive floor. James's office was at the end of a long hallway lined with awards, newspaper clippings, and photos documenting Morrison Industries' 30-year history. His assistant, A woman named Carol, who appeared to be in her 60s, greeted Maya with a warm smile. "Go right in," Carol said. "He's expecting you." James's office was impressive but not ostentatious, with large windows overlooking the city. Built-in bookshelves filled with business and construction references, and a seating area that looked designed for informal meetings. James was standing behind his desk, reviewing what appeared to be architectural plans, but he looked up immediately when Maya entered. "Maya, thank you for coming up," he said, gesturing toward the chairs in front of his desk. "Please sit down." Maya settled into the offered chair, trying to read his expression. James seemed serious but not angry, focused but not dismissive. "First," James said, taking his own seat behind the desk, "how is Emma feeling today?" "Much better, thank you," Maya replied. "I think it was just a minor virus that worked its way through quickly." "Good. That's what I hope to hear." James leaned back in his chair, studying Maya with those penetrating green eyes. "I wanted to talk with you about what happened yesterday and about some policies we might need to clarify." Maya's heart sank. Here it came, the lecture about professional boundaries and appropriate workplace behavior. She'd been an employee for exactly 1 day before creating a situation that required the CEO's personal intervention. "Mr. Morrison," she began, "I want to apologize again for yesterday. I know it's not appropriate to involve senior management in personal emergencies, and I certainly never expected you to drive me across town. I'm committed to handling these situations more professionally in the future." James held up a hand to stop her. "Maya, you're misunderstanding my purpose here. I'm not criticizing your actions yesterday. You handled a family emergency exactly as you should have. What I want to discuss is how Morrison Industries can better support employees who are parents." Maya blinked in surprise. This was not the conversation she'd been expecting. "I've been thinking about our employee policies," James continued, "and I realize that we don't have adequate provisions for the kinds of situations you faced yesterday. Working parents need flexibility and support, not judgment and ultimatums." He opened a folder on his desk and pulled out what appeared to be a draft policy document. "I've asked HR to develop new guidelines for family emergencies, backup childcare assistance, and flexible scheduling options. I'd like your input on these proposals, given your recent experience." Maya stared at the document, hardly able to believe what she was hearing. Instead of being reprimanded for her childcare crisis, she was being asked to help shape company policy to better support working parents. "I don't know what to say," Maya admitted. "This is incredibly thoughtful, but I also don't want special treatment just because." "This isn't special treatment," James interrupted. "This is good business. Morrison Industries succeeds when our employees can focus on their work without constantly worrying about impossible choices between career and family. Yesterday showed me that we have room for improvement in that area." Maya scanned the draft policy, impressed by the comprehensive nature of the proposed changes. The document outlined emergency childcare assistance, flexible scheduling options, and even partnerships with local childcare providers to offer backup services for employees. These policies would benefit every working parent in the company, Maya said, looking up at James with genuine admiration. "Not just people in crisis situations like mine." "Exactly," James confirmed. "We want to attract and retain the best talent, regardless of their family circumstances. That means creating an environment where people can be successful both professionally and personally." Maya spent the next 20 minutes reviewing the draft policies and offering suggestions based on her own experiences and the challenges she'd observed other working parents facing. James listened carefully to her input, taking notes and asking clarifying questions that demonstrated genuine interest in her perspective. "This is exactly the kind of feedback we need," James said as they wrapped up their discussion. "You're dealing with these challenges in real time, which gives you insights that those of us without young children might miss." As Maya prepared to return to her desk, James stood and walked around to the front of his desk, leaning against it casually. "Maya," he said, his tone becoming more personal, "I want you to know that yesterday reminded me why I got into business in the first place. It's not about the deals or the profits or the recognition. It's about creating something that makes people's lives better." There was something vulnerable in his expression, a glimpse of the man behind the CEO persona. Maya found herself curious about what experiences had shaped his perspective on family and work-life balance. "Thank you," she said simply. "For yesterday, for today, for all of this. I've never worked anywhere that took these issues so seriously." "Then you've been working at the wrong places," James replied with a slight smile. "Family comes first. Maya, everything else is just details." Maya returned to her desk feeling energized and grateful in ways she hadn't expected. Not only had her family emergency not damaged her standing with the company, but it had actually contributed to positive changes that would benefit other employees for years to come. The rest of the week passed smoothly, with Maya settling into her role and building productive relationships with colleagues. Emma's adjustment to childcare continued to improve, with fewer tears at drop-off and enthusiastic babbling about her new friends and activities. Friday afternoon brought Maya's first week at Morrison Industries to a close. As she prepared to leave for the weekend, Rebecca stopped by her desk with a smile. "You've done excellent work this week," Rebecca sighed. "I know Monday was challenging, but you've handled everything with such professionalism and grace. I'm really glad we hired you." Maya felt a glow of satisfaction as she gathered her things and headed for the elevator. A week ago, she'd been a desperate single mother facing an uncertain future. Now she was a valued employee at a respected company, working under a CEO who understood that supporting families was good for business and good for society. The weekend stretched ahead with its promise of uninterrupted time with Emma, but Maya found herself actually looking forward to Monday morning and the opportunity to continue building her career at Morrison Industries. For the first time in months, the future felt bright with possibility rather than shadowed by fear and uncertainty. As Maya collected Emma from childcare and settled into their usual evening routine, she reflected on how dramatically her life had changed just 1 week. The job at Morrison Industries wasn't just a paycheck, it was a pathway to the kind of life she wanted to build for herself and her daughter. A life where financial security allowed for choices rather than constant crisis management, where professional fulfillment complemented rather than competed with motherhood. Emma babbled happily in her high chair as Maya prepared dinner, seemingly none the worse for her adventure with fever and childcare adjustment. Maya watched her daughter's animated expressions and felt a deep sense of gratitude for all the small miracles that had led them to this moment. The future was still uncertain, still full of challenges and potential obstacles. But Maya faced it now with confidence and support, knowing that she worked for a company that valued both her professional contributions and her role as a mother. It was more than she had dared to hope for, and it was just the beginning. 3 weeks into her employment at Morrison Industries, Maya had settled into a comfortable rhythm that balanced her demanding job with her responsibilities as a single mother. Emma was thriving at Sunshine Early Learning, her initial adjustment difficulties replaced by genuine excitement about seeing her caregivers and playmates each morning. Maya's confidence in her role had grown tremendously, and she'd begun taking on additional responsibilities that showcased her organizational skills and business acumen. The crisis that would change everything began on a seemingly ordinary Thursday morning. Maya arrived at work to find Rebecca Martinez in a state of controlled panic, fielding multiple phone calls while simultaneously reviewing documents spread across her desk. "Maya, thank goodness you're here," Rebecca said, covering the phone receiver with her hand. "We have a major situation developing with the Riverside Plaza project. The City Planning Commission just rejected our environmental Impact assessment, and we have a presentation to the investors tomorrow morning that we now need to completely overhaul. Maya immediately shifted into problem-solving mode, grabbing a notepad to capture the details as Rebecca explained the scope of the challenge. The environmental assessment rejection meant that Morrison Industries needed to fundamentally restructure. Their approach to the $50 million development project, requiring new studies, revised timelines, and completely different financial projections. "What do you need me to do first?" Maya asked, already mentally prioritizing the tasks that would need to be accomplished in the next 24 hours. "Everything," Rebecca replied with a stressed laugh. "We need to schedule emergency meetings with our environmental consultants, coordinate with the legal team, arrange for updated presentation materials, and somehow pull together a comprehensive response that will keep the investors from walking away." Maya spent the morning orchestrating a complex dance of meetings, phone calls, and document preparation. She coordinated with external consultants, scheduled back-to-back meetings that would normally take weeks to arrange, and personally oversaw the preparation of presentation materials that needed to be perfect despite the impossibly tight deadline. By noon, Maya had successfully arranged for the environmental consulting team to work through the night on revised assessments, scheduled a 6 a.m. meeting with the legal department, and coordinated with the graphics team to prepare updated visual presentations. The crisis was far from over, but the foundation for a solution was firmly in place. Around 1 p.m., just as Maya was beginning to feel confident about their progress, her phone rang with a call that made her stomach drop. The caller ID showed Sunshine Early Learning, and Maya's experience with Emma's fever, 3 weeks earlier, had taught her that midday calls from childcare were rarely good news. "Maya, this is Patricia," came the familiar voice of the center director. But this time she sounded genuinely distressed. "I'm afraid we have an emergency situation here. Our building's heating system has failed completely, and with the temperature dropping outside, we need to close the center immediately for safety reasons." Maya glanced outside at the gray November sky, where the first snowflakes of the season were beginning to fall. The weather forecast had predicted the first significant cold snap of the winter, with temperatures expected to drop into the 20s by evening. "The repair company can't get here until tomorrow morning," Patricia continued. "I'm so sorry for the short notice, but all parents need to pick up their children within the next hour. We simply can't keep the children here without heat." Maya's mind raced through her options, none of which seemed viable. Mrs. Rodriguez was visiting family in Puerto Rico for 2 weeks. The backup babysitter Maya had researched lived across town and wouldn't be available on such short notice. Maya's few friends all had their own work obligations that couldn't be abandoned at a moment's notice. "I understand," Maya said, trying to keep the panic out of her voice. "I'll be there as soon as I can." After hanging up, Maya stared at her computer screen for a long moment, trying to process the impossible situation she was facing. Today was the most critical day she'd experienced at Morrison Industries, with multiple moving parts that required her constant coordination and attention. Rebecca was depending on her to manage the crisis response that could determine the future of a $50 million project. Walking away now would leave dozens of people without the support they needed to meet tomorrow's deadline. But Emma was 8 months old and couldn't be left alone. Maya had no backup childcare options available, and even if she could find someone willing to help on such short notice, she couldn't afford to pay for emergency care services. Maya walked slowly to Rebecca's office, her stomach churning with anxiety about the conversation she was about to have. Rebecca was on a conference call with the environmental consultants, her voice tense as she discussed the technical requirements for the revised assessment. Maya waited outside the office until Rebecca finished her call, then knocked gently on the doorframe. Rebecca looked up with an expression that immediately shifted from focus to concern when she saw Maya's face. "What's wrong?" Rebecca asked, gesturing for Maya to sit down. Maya explained the situation with the childcare center, watching Rebecca's expression grow more troubled with each detail. When Maya finished, Rebecca sat back in her chair and ran her hands through her hair. "This is a disaster," Rebecca said, but her tone suggested sympathy rather than anger. "Not your fault, obviously, but the timing couldn't be worse. We absolutely need you here this afternoon and evening. Half the coordination for tomorrow's presentation runs through you." "I know," Maya said quietly. "I'm trying to think of alternatives, but I don't have any backup options available on such short notice." Rebecca was quiet for a moment, clearly wrestling with the same impossible equation that Maya had been trying to solve. Finally, she looked up with an expression that suggested she was about to propose something unconventional. "What if you brought Emma here?" Rebecca asked. "I know it's not ideal, and it's definitely not normal company policy, but we're dealing with an emergency situation. You could set up in the small conference room next to your desk, and Emma could stay with you while you coordinate everything." Remotely, Maya's first instinct was to refuse. Bringing a baby to work seemed incredibly unprofessional, especially at a company like Morrison Industries where everything operated at such a high level of sophistication. But as she considered the alternatives, Maya realized that Rebecca's suggestion might be the only way to handle both her professional obligations and her parental responsibilities. "Are you sure that would be okay?" Maya asked. "I don't want to create a distraction or make anyone uncomfortable. It's better than losing you entirely on the most critical day of this project," Rebecca replied pragmatically. "Besides, it's just for one afternoon. We'll make it work." Maya hurried across town to collect Emma, her mind already working through the logistics of caring for a baby while managing a corporate crisis. She packed extra supplies, toys to keep Emma occupied, and everything she could think of that might help minimize disruptions. Emma seemed delighted by the unexpected change in routine, babbling happily as Maya carried her through the familiar lobby of Morrison Industries. Several employees smiled and waved at the baby, and Maya was touched by how naturally everyone seemed to accept the unusual situation. Maya set up a makeshift nursery in the small conference room adjacent to her desk, spreading blankets on the floor and arranging Emma's toys in a safe play area. Emma immediately began exploring her new environment, crawling around the space and investigating everything within her reach. For the first hour, the arrangement worked surprisingly well. Maya was able to make phone calls and coordinate meetings while Emma played contentedly nearby. The baby seemed fascinated by the office environment, watching with wide eyes as people walked past the glass walls of the conference room. Around 3 p.m., Maya was on an important call with the legal team when Emma began getting fussy. Maya tried to soothe her daughter while maintaining her professional conversation, bouncing Emma gently and offering her a bottle. But Emma was tired and overstimulated, and her fussing quickly escalated into full crying. Maya apologized to the legal team and asked for a 5-minute break to tend to Emma. She tried everything in her parental toolkit: feeding, changing, rocking, singing, but Emma continued to cry with the particular intensity that meant she was overwhelmed and needed comfort that only sleep could provide. The sound of crying baby was clearly audible throughout the 5th floor, and Maya could see concerned glances from colleagues who were trying to work. She felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment as she realized that her solution to the childcare crisis was creating exactly the kind of workplace disruption she'd hoped to avoid. Maya was pacing the conference room with Emma, desperately trying to calm her daughter, when she heard footsteps approaching. She looked up to see James Morrison standing in the doorway, his expression unreadable as he took in the scene before him. "I heard there was a baby in the building," James said, his tone neutral but not unkind. "Rebecca filled me in on the situation. With the heating failure at the childcare center." Maya felt her career flashing before her eyes. This was it, the moment when she would be politely but firmly told that Morrison Industries wasn't the right fit for someone with her kind of family obligations. She prepared herself for the conversation about professional boundaries and appropriate workplace behavior. "Mr. Morrison, I'm so sorry about the disruption," Maya began, still bouncing Emma in an attempt to calm her. "I know this isn't appropriate, but I literally had no other options available on such short notice." James stepped into the conference room and closed the door behind him, muffling the sound of Emma's crying. "May I?" he asked, extending his arms toward the baby. Maya stared at him in shock. The CEO of Morrison Industries was offering to hold her crying baby? She hesitated for a moment, then carefully transferred Emma into James's arms, expecting the baby to cry even harder at being held by a stranger. Instead, something remarkable happened. Emma's crying immediately subsided to sniffles as she found herself in strong, confident arms that clearly knew how to hold a baby. James began swaying gently, making soft shushing sounds that suggested he had significant experience calming fussy infants. "She's probably overstimulated," James said quietly, continuing his gentle swaying motion. "New environment, lots of unfamiliar sounds and people. Sometimes they just need a different energy to help them settle down." Maya watched in amazement as Emma's sniffles gradually faded to occasional hiccups, then to the heavy breathing that indicated she was finally relaxing. James continued his gentle movements, humming softly under his breath in a way that was clearly second nature to him. "How do you know so much about babies?" Maya asked, genuinely curious about this unexpected side of her CEO. James's expression grew distant for a moment, and Maya caught a glimpse of something painful flickering across his features. "I had a daughter once," he said quietly, then seemed to catch himself. "It was a long time ago." Before Maya could ask any follow-up questions, Emma made a sudden grab for James's hair with her tiny fist, catching a handful of his dark strands and pulling with surprising strength. James winced slightly, but didn't try to extract his hair from Emma's grip, instead continuing his gentle swaying motion. "She's got quite a grip," James said with a slight smile, carefully working to free his hair from Emma's determined fist. "Strong hands. She'll probably be good at whatever she decides to do." The moment was surprisingly intimate, the powerful CEO allowing himself to be temporarily captured by a baby's curiosity, handling the situation with patience and even amusement. Maya felt something shift in her understanding of James Morrison as she watched him navigate Emma's exploration with practiced ease. Emma finally released his hair and settled against his chest, her eyes growing heavy as the combination of exhaustion and comfort took effect. James continued his gentle movements until Emma was fast asleep, then carefully transferred her back to Mia's arms. "She should sleep for at least an hour now," James said quietly. "That should give you time to finish coordinating the crisis response without interruption." Maya settled Emma in the portable crib she'd brought, marveling at how quickly her daughter had fallen asleep after fighting rest for over an hour. "Thank you," she said, looking up at James with genuine gratitude. "I don't know how you did that, but you clearly have magic touch with babies." James's expression grew complicated again, and Maya sensed there was a story behind his unexpected skill with children. But before she could explore the topic further, James shifted back into his professional persona. "The Riverside Plaza situation is critical," he said, his tone becoming more businesslike. "Rebecca tells me you've been instrumental in coordinating the response. What's our status?" Maya updated him on the progress she'd made, detailing the meetings she'd arranged, the consultants she'd coordinated, and the timeline for delivering the revised presentation to investors. James listened carefully, asking clarifying questions that demonstrated his deep understanding of both the technical and business implications of the crisis. "Excellent work," James said when Maya finished her summary. "You've managed to turn a potential disaster into a manageable challenge. The coordination alone must have taken extraordinary effort." "That's what I'm here for," Maya replied, feeling a flush of pride at his recognition. "Though I have to admit," Doing it with a baby in the room wasn't part of my original job description. James smiled slightly at that. The best employees are the ones who find ways to handle unexpected challenges while maintaining their core responsibilities. You've demonstrated both today. As James prepared to leave the conference room, he turned back with an expression that seemed more personal than professional. Maya, I want you to know that what you're doing, balancing career and motherhood, especially as a single parent, it's one of the hardest things anyone can attempt. The fact that you're doing it successfully while contributing at this level to the company is genuinely impressive. Maya felt tears threatening at the unexpected recognition. She'd spent so many months feeling like her status as a single mother was a liability, something to hide or apologize for. Having it acknowledged as a strength rather than a weakness was profoundly moving. "Thank you," she said quietly. "That means more than you can imagine." James nodded and left the conference room, but not before glancing back at Emma sleeping peacefully in her portable crib. Maya settled back at her temporary workstation, able to focus completely now that Emma was resting comfortably. The rest of the afternoon proceeded smoothly, with Maya successfully coordinating the final details for the next morning's presentation. Emma woke refreshed and content, playing quietly while Maya handled phone calls and managed the complex logistics of the crisis response. By 6 p.m., Maya had accomplished everything necessary to ensure that the morning presentation would proceed successfully. The environmental consultants were working through the night on revised assessments. The legal team had cleared the new approach, and the presentation materials were being finalized by the graphics department. Rebecca stopped by the conference room as Maya was packing up Emma's supplies, her expression reflecting exhaustion but also relief. "I honestly don't know how we would have managed this without you," Rebecca said, settling into one of the conference room chairs. "The coordination required for today was incredibly complex, and somehow you managed it all while dealing with a completely unexpected childcare situation." Maya lifted Emma into her arms, grateful that her daughter had been so well behaved during the crucial afternoon hours. "Emma was actually pretty good company," Maya said with a smile. "Though I definitely don't want to make a habit of bringing her to work." "About that," Rebecca said, her tone becoming more serious, "I wanted to talk with you about something. James and I discussed your situation today, and we realized that we need to formalize some of the family support policies he mentioned a few weeks ago." Maya looked up with interest, remembering her conversation with James about developing better support systems for working parents. Starting next month, Morrison Industries will be partnering with 3 local childcare centers to provide emergency backup care for employee families, Rebecca continued. "We'll also be implementing flexible work-from-home policies for situations like today, where you need to manage both professional responsibilities and unexpected family circumstances." Maya stared at Rebecca in amazement. "You're creating these policies because of what happened today?" "We're creating these policies because talented employees like you shouldn't have to choose between family emergencies and career responsibilities," Rebecca replied. "What happened today showed us that with a little flexibility and support, it's possible to handle both successfully." As Maya prepared to leave for the day, she reflected on how dramatically her understanding of Morrison Industries had evolved. She'd started the day thinking that bringing Emma to work might end her career. Instead, it had led to policy changes that would benefit working parents throughout the company for years to come. The next morning's presentation to the Riverside Plaza investors was a complete success. The revised environmental approach that Maya had helped coordinate overnight was not only acceptable to the Planning Commission but actually strengthened the overall project proposal. The investors were impressed by Morrison Industries' ability to turn a crisis into an opportunity, and the project moved forward with renewed momentum. James Morrison personally thanked Maya for her contributions to the crisis response, acknowledging her role in front of the entire project team. It was professional recognition of the highest order, confirming that her value to the company extended far beyond basic administrative support. But it was the memory of James holding Emma, calming her with practiced ease while allowing a baby to pull his hair without complaint, that stayed with Maya most vividly. There had been something almost vulnerable about that moment, a glimpse of a man who understood the weight of parental responsibility in ways that suggested personal experience. Maya never did learn the full story behind James's skill with babies or the sadness that had flickered across his face when he mentioned having a daughter once. But she carried the memory of his kindness, both to her and to Emma, as proof that it was possible to be both professionally successful and genuinely compassionate. The incident became something of a legend at Morrison Industries. The day when the CEO personally calmed a crying baby while the employee managed a multi-million-dollar crisis. It exemplified the company culture that James was building, where family and work weren't competing priorities, but complementary aspects of a successful life. For Maya, it marked the moment when she stopped feeling like she had to hide or apologize for being a single mother. Emma wasn't a liability to be managed, but part of what made Maya who she was. Someone capable of handling complex challenges with grace. Someone whose personal experiences had given her perspectives that strengthened her professional contributions. The future stretched ahead with new possibilities and opportunities, built on a foundation of mutual respect and understanding. Maya had found more than just a job at Morrison Industries. She'd found a place where both she and Emma could thrive, where family truly did come first without compromising professional excellence. As Maya settled into her evening routine with Emma that night, she thought about the unexpected journey that had brought them to this point. A childcare crisis that could have been a career disaster had instead become the catalyst for positive change, both for her personally and for working families throughout the company. Emma babbled happily as Maya prepared her for bed, completely unaware that her handful of CEO hair had helped create a more family-friendly workplace for countless other children and parents. Sometimes the most significant changes came from the smallest, most unexpected moments, like a baby's curiosity about a stranger's hair and a CEO's patient response to an innocent gesture. The story wasn't ending. It was just beginning. Maya had built a foundation for the kind of life she wanted for herself and Emma, where professional success and family devotion could coexist and strengthen each other. The future was bright with possibility, and Maya faced it with confidence, gratitude, and the knowledge that she'd found her place in the world. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.